live. Welcome back to another episode of the Media Maestros pod. Really glad to have you back. We got a lot of cool things in store for today, so excited for y'all to be with us. I'm your host, Ram, joined by our other host, Ray. Ray, how things going, bro? What you been up to? I feel like it's been an active weekend. We've been outside a little bit.
Yeah, I've definitely, been outside this weekend. I got to catch a legacy artist who was celebrating their 20th anniversary of probably their biggest album,
20 years.
which was the final lap tour,
Okay.
50 Cent's tour that's going
Okay.
on right now. Yeah, he just touched down in Virginia, so I went out there, checked it out,
Dope.
and
Dope. Dope.
it was great. It was a
Really.
great.
And it wasn't just 50, right? He had someone else. He had some other people with him.
Yeah, so it started out with, well, the first part was just the DJ playing the joints, whatnot.
Yeah.
He went to some throwbacks. It was a lot of like R&B throwback jams, getting people in the mood. Then it was Jeremiah. So
Oh,
Jeremiah was the first act to open it up. And, before getting there, I like to look up the different artists that are performing, refamiliarize myself with the songs.
yeah, lock in.
Jeremiah, Jeremiah has quite a few hits.
He got a 20?
Nah, I don't think he has a 20. He has a
He, cl-
strong 10.
he closed, yeah, real strong 10. Yeah.
As far as like, that era of R&B artists, he might be kind of hard to beat.
Yeah.
Like going against like Lil Wayne.
What's the one when he was like uh, uh, uh,
Yeah, that's a
what song
great
is
one.
that?
That's We.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, okay.
That's a good one.
And he also had Bus with them, right? Bus of Bus.
Busta Rhymes, yeah, he was the second act. He came out, killed it, fast rapping,
Yeah.
stage presence. He went through, the classic songs. He went all the way back to What's the Scenario, and
Yeah.
then, all the other joints. Keep Your Hands Where My Eyes Can See, Break Your Neck,
Yeah. Yeah.
and he made a big thing out of performing Look at Me Now. That was like a huge, like he paused it. He was like waiting for the applause. He was like, I can't hear y'all. And then
Yeah.
he killed it. He killed it. So
And then the man himself, Curtis.
yeah, the man of the night, 50 Cent, you know, brought down the house, of course. Now that was like a big production. He had um, outfit changes. He had like stuff going on in the background. He had
Really?
pyrotechnics.
Really?
Um, he had dancers. There was like a whole choreography. The ladies up there doing their thing. He even had Tony Yayo and Uncle Murda,
Okay.
backing him up there. No Lloyd Banks,
Big G
but
Unit vibes.
the two of them were up there as well. And it was great. Now that 50 Cent definitely has a 20.
Oh, he might have one of the
Easily.
strongest 20s.
Yeah.
Hard
It
out for most artists.
it was just crazy. He just kept going and going and going and going. And the fact that he doesn't even have that extensive of a discography. He only has
Yeah.
a few albums, and out of those, it's just riddled with hits.
Riddled with
Very,
hits.
very impressive.
Really well said. Really well said. Sounds like a really good way to kick off the weekend, round things out, and really put a dent into this summer. Now, it's funny you mentioned, 50's concert. Last
Hmm.
episode, we had a bit of a discussion about another huge album and a kind of a concert series, concert film, right?
That's right. So Travis Scott put out Circus Maximus, which
Okay.
is a film based on the album Utopia.
Okay.
So it kind of, is separated by like three different aspects. You have this ongoing conversation that he has with Rick Rubin in the film.
Okay.
Rick Rubin is asking him like personal questions.
It's like an interview kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then spliced in between that is, you get these vignettes for a handful of the songs that he chose to do. And it's kind of like extensive, like really well produced music videos, like short films, like miniature short films spliced in throughout different locations, different like concepts, themes, all put together. And then the last bit, the third act of it, is him arriving to this Coliseum and fully performing the tracks of the album and bringing up, guest features, Tizo Touchdown, Sheck
Okay.
West,
Okay.
um, Young Lean, probably forgetting a couple other people, but showing them up there like I guess it would be kind of the lesser known artists, not the big ones. Like
Yeah.
there was no Drake or,
The
you
SZA.
know, exactly. But it was cool to see that, see them perform together. Crazy energy.
Yeah.
Um, he even had like a robot band in the background playing the
Really.
music. It was his, he just has his own idea for how he wants things to look. He directed the film
Okay.
along with a few other directors, Nicholas Winding Refn, um, a couple others that are known for like really stylistic films. So they all came together to direct this. And um, especially if you're a fan of Travis Scott or a fan of this album in particular, I would recommend checking it out. It really puts things together, adds visuals to the music that you're listening to, and I really enjoyed that experience. And seeing it in theaters was great. Other people, vibing to the music while it was going on, being
Yeah.
in that communal experience of watching it was awesome.
Especially with that, Dolby digital sound.
Yeah,
It's all around you. I love
exactly,
that.
exactly.
No, that's cool though. That's sounds definitely like worth checking out, especially with it being on Apple Music, Apple Music now, right?
Yeah, they have it airing on Apple right now. So it's probably like a month after, or a few weeks after it came out of theaters, they put it on streaming. So you can check it out there.
That's cool. That's cool. It sounds like a nice creative concept blending the album and the music. And I know he also had the concert actually at the Roman Coliseum, if I'm not mistaken. That was epic, I heard.
Yeah, yeah, he did. That was quite the feat to perform there. He brought out Kanye West as well, who was a huge inspiration for making this album. You could hear a
Yeah.
lot of the influence there in the production and the different flows that he uses throughout the album. So it made all the sense in the world.
Yeah, I heard there was actually some damage, some structural damage to the ruins, being it that
Oh
there were
wow,
there were seismic earthquakes, just how crazy the crowd was going.
that sounds like a Travis Scott show.
It sounds like Travis Scott show for sure. Well, it's funny. I checked out an album recently, a new release that I really wanted to share. Just kind of touch on. Are you familiar with Reason? TDE's own?
I am familiar with Reason.
Yeah, so he just dropped his official second album. Some may say his third based on what's presented as
Mm,
his discography, but officially
okay.
his sophomore release. It's called Porches. And I enjoyed this album. I think it's definitely worth checking it out. I think it has some sleeper tracks on it. Definitely a lot of hits that might get overlooked. I think Reason's one of those artists I group in the same boat with Wale as high talent, really able to put out a good project, but yeah, it gets often overlooked. I'm curious if you have heard of this album or heard anything about the album or, gonna check it out. What you think?
The main thing that I've heard about in this album run or album press tour is the conversation that he had with Musa, um, and the kind of backlash or comments surrounding that, and just the overall idea of Reason showing his discomfort in his current situation, maybe not getting as much stardom that he may want, not being put in the right positions. Do we hear any of this contention in the album, or does it take a different direction?
Great question. And it does not show up on the album. The album is more, it's somewhat of a concept album. The album is much more about the ways that we all have our own different paths. We have our different encounters, whether that be relationship struggles, whether that be, trying to get out the hood, whether that be trying to provide for your family. It's very it's less about reason as the person, maybe more about the things that have inspired him to be who he is. But he
Mm.
doesn't get too much into his real actual life and definitely not his real struggle with his music label.
How would you compare this to his previous efforts? Where would
For
you rank
me,
it?
I think, thinking of New Beginnings, for example, I think that was much more of a this is me. And I want you all to kind of see where I'm coming from. I found Porches to be more of this is society and this is what it looks like. And this is kind of the stories that we either have seen or our own stories or the stories we have heard. So I
Okay.
think it's worth checking out. It's a bit of a different experience, but I think it's worth the ride.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely enjoyed There You Have It. And his second project released after that had some joints on there. So I'm definitely not afraid to dive into another Reason album. So
Yeah, I'm curious, as you think of Reason, where do you think Reason fits in the landscape of, hip hop today?
it's interesting because I think he doesn't really have I I feel like unfortunately Reason doesn't have a unique sound.
Mm, yeah.
And I think that that kind of hinders him. Like he's tried to make like bangers. He's made more like conceptual songs. But when I hear, someone kind of in his class, like a West Side Boogie or Smino or Saba, I feel like they all have their own sound. Like when I hear a Saba, Smino, Boogie song, I can, easily identify it. They have their own style, and I haven't felt that from Reason. So it makes me less likely to rush to check something out of his. And hopefully, as he continues on, this being his third major project, second studio album, that he just continues to grow and hopefully will be in a place where he feels um, comfortable in what he's doing and the audience will be receptive to that.
I think that's a really great point, definitely towards the end of it, regarding just feeling comfortable. I think it's hard. He even has a line on this album where he mentions essentially pressures to, in some ways, fill in Kendrick Lamar's shoes or be
Mm,
the next Kendrick. And you talk about having that fresh sound. That's a really great point. And nothing about Reason is unique to him besides just his own personal life and story. And that's hard as an artist when these days there's a new artist on every corner.
yeah,
So I'm wishing him the best. He's a guy that, from what I've seen personally, I like, and I definitely can relate to his struggles and feeling not accepted and feeling like even his own label isn't trying to see him be his best self. So definitely wishing him the best.
agreed. Yeah, I definitely want, him to achieve what, other artists on TDE have been able to achieve.
Yeah,
And,
yeah,
he's a great rapper. So at the end of the day, he has that. And, hopefully we'll see improvements.
yeah. I really hope so too.
So another thing that we talked about um, or have been discussing behind the scenes,
Yeah,
but finally want to bring it to the pod, it
yeah,
the show Hijack that we've been checking out. So Hijack on Apple TV Plus,
officially
starring Idris Elba, uh,
legend.
a thriller. It's a show that it's a very short show, only a handful of episodes, but we have uh, been anticipating how I for sure have been anticipating how it was going to end. I think we both have finally finished the season. So, take it away. What did you think?
So I may have briefly mentioned this on one of our earlier episodes, but I enjoyed the series. Episode one, I was immediately hooked in, found myself craving more all the way through to episode six, episode five, I'll say, where I was really just on the edge of my seat, really just enjoying every turn, every twist, every corner, every, you know, new development. I thought it was really well done. Episode six, I think the show somewhat took a little bit of a turn. I won't say they jumped the shark, but I will say that they went boogie boarding.
Okay. Wait, episode 6. How many is that the second to last episode?
I
Or
believe that was the penultimate, right before the finale. I
okay.
personally felt, and we don't want to spoil it, so spoiler alerts. We may give a little bit of, may give a few spoilers, so spoiler alerts. I think we have to give a spoiler because I need to say what I'm about to say. When
Okay.
the woman goes and she shoots the pilot, and she then kind of proceeds into the cockpit,
Yeah.
that whole thing was kind of like, it was one of those things where it's like, how can I put this? When a show has a kind of ace in the best in his back pocket, and you just throw it out. And I think I'm trying to figure out, how did this arise? What's the rationale behind this? Does this logically fit within the flow of the story? Objectively, I cannot say that it did.
Hmm. When you say ace in the back pocket, like I guess where would you, if this kind of ending didn't happen, where would you have wanted to see the show end up?
I think it could have ended with some sort of, potentially some sort of overthrow with the original pilot. I actually thought they were going to do a landing on water, and
Hmm.
kind of like a, will they survive? Will they not? Will they survive? Will they not? Okay.
Okay.
Not horrible, but huge crash on the water. And planes have landed on water and the passengers have survived. So
That's
it would
true.
have been realistic, but it also would have been very dramatic, and it would have been very like cumulative, reasonably. I felt like this woman coming out of nowhere and then taking such the grand step to shoot a man in the head, lock herself in the cockpit, and then in terms of our viewing experience, some 30 minutes later decide, actually, all right, you're right, I'm bugging. I'm just gonna be on your side now. I feel like that was a bit undercooked. And
Okay.
maybe if
Yeah.
there were another episode to really work on her emotions and play on her feelings and try to get her to come down to earth and be sensible, and she wasn't getting any reception from the bad guys, maybe that would have made more sense. But it felt like such a, she went from one moment, breaking the radio, I don't want to talk to you, I'm not going to say anything, to 30 minutes later, oh yeah, I do have a daughter, she wouldn't want me to do this. That felt undercooked. I'm curious what you thought of the series as a whole and the finale.
So I was really enjoying kind of, exactly the way that you were saying, like the progression of the episodes, the different twists that we were introduced to. I was on the edge of my seat
Yeah.
waiting for each new episode to come out. And then we do get to this episode. It's the end of the penultimate episode where she
Yeah.
ends up, shooting the pilot. And I was floored. I
Yeah.
was not expecting that at all. And
Same.
I think that that's kind of a tricky thing when it comes to something, a reveal like that, because you don't want to telegraph it too much.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't telegraph it enough, then it does kind of just feel out of nowhere and you lose all of the stakes and the believability of it as well. So they went a direction, whether it really resonated with the audience. Obviously not as much with you. I don't hate it. I don't think that it was um much of a detraction
Yeah.
from the show for me. I was still kind of along with it. More so towards the end of what you were saying is where I do definitely agree where the switch of her shooting a man in the head and then, later in the episode, like, kind of being a deer in the headlights,
Yeah. Totally reneging.
damsel in distress kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
Exactly.
it was weird. Not to say that that's not possible or how humans can operate in stressful situations,
Great point.
but it I agree. It just wasn't developed well enough. It was kind of rushed to get
Great
to
point.
that point.
I
Yeah.
also think that the directors and producers maybe anticipated us sympathizing with her, or kind of empathizing with the fact that she, family's under pressure. I have a daughter, they're going to kill my daughter. For example, the way that she negotiates this, totally immunity scot
Yeah,
free. I
it's
think that
ridiculous.
I think that the the writers maybe thought that we would think that it was justified. But the same exact thing happened to all of the other criminals. Their families were in hostage. Their families were either murdered or killed. For example, the leader of the pack, the show mentioned that their father was killed. So if we
Mm,
have sympathy for this woman, we ought to have sympathy for them as well. I thought that wasn't thought out well. And I
okay.
thought in some ways it does ruin from what was a really great show. I mean, even thinking about the very ending in which Idris Elba, for some reason, goes back onto the plane and they wanted to have like one more fight scene.
Yeah, showdown between the
How
main
did the
guy
guy
and
get
him.
free when he had his hands were zip tied?
Yeah, it kind of went off the rails towards the end for sure. I agree with that. They didn't really know how to end it, which happens a lot when you have a great premise. It kind of, dissolves towards the end. They don't really know how to, you know, finalize it in a really
Stick the
strong way.
landing.
Stick the exactly. There you go. But
Yeah. Yeah, great point. So, all in all, I think it's a good show. It's a good watch. If you have heard our spoilers and don't mind checking it out, I really encourage you to go back, see it for yourself.
hmm
Episodes 1 through 5 are some of the most climactic, some of the most kind of energetic episodes I've seen on Apple TV thus far. And I currently do recommend it for anyone that may be interested. Now,
Another,
Ray, I just want to say that you told me of a film you've seen recently that I'd love to
yes,
hear a little bit more about.
yeah. So,
Please share, my brother.
so A24 is a company whose output I have really enjoyed. They've made a lot of my favorite films, and they have a strong leaning towards horror.
Yeah.
And this is an example of that. This film called Talk to Me.
And
The basic,
what else have they made just before you get too deep into it?
oh, sure. So like um, Moonlight,
Oh, I
Ex
love
Machina,
Moonlight. Okay.
um, The Florida Project, Ghost Story.
Okay.
Um, yeah, they've made a myriad of different types of films.
Okay.
Um, and this is their newest effort. I believe, oh, Everything Everywhere All at Once as well as a
One of my favorite films of all time.
heavy hitter. But yeah, you have this film. The basic premise is there's this hand, this like mythical hand,
Like a hand, like a helper, or like four fingers and a thumb.
the latter, four
Okay.
fingers and a thumb.
Okay.
And basically, what happens is when you grip the hand, you get, and you say, "Talk to me," you get
Mm-hmm.
like possessed
Mm-hmm.
by this entity, whoever, like some past spirit.
Mm-hmm.
You see them, and then they enter your body, and it's kind of like the way that they portrayed in the film is really interesting because it's like a bunch of these teenagers doing this game,
Mm-hmm.
kind of like,
Like a
you know,
Ouija board.
exactly.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like a drug. Like they do it and
Mm-hmm.
they get this like high and
Mm-hmm.
they get like addicted to it. They want to keep doing it over and over and over again. But that causes the main conflict where um, due to the addiction to this and not being able to really control it, they end up sticking too long to it because there's supposed to be a time, like you can only do it for this amount of time, or else there'll be permanent effects, and that's what ends up happening. Spoiler alert! I should have said that before, but that it's not really a spoiler. That's kind of just from the trailer,
Yeah.
But the specifics of what ends up happening after that is kind of the real uh, nuts and bolts of the film, how it affects the characters when this spirit ends up taking control of the people that are involved.
I see.
Um, it's definitely like more of a psychological film, even though it has the supernatural elements. It deals with um, the minds of the characters, the psyche, and it's not just jump scare and
Yeah.
traditional cliches of horror films. There are some of that, but I think it's a really unique film in this landscape of a lot of same old. Um, and I think it's worth checking out if you're into horror. if you're into 824. I think these are first time directors. The
Okay.
Philippou brothers directed this film. A lot of first time actors as well, which was interesting to see because everyone did a really great job. And it takes place in Australia, so it's Australian actors. Um, but it's really worth worth checking out if you're into this genre for this
Okay.
year.
Okay. You definitely sold me on it being a real unique effort. I definitely love to hear a little bit more about it, and I might even check it out myself. Talk to me.
Talk to me.
Okay. Well, at this stage of our Media Maestros experience, there's only one thing left to do, and that's discuss our blast
Blast
from
from
the
the past.
past. We're getting closer. We're getting
Got
closer.
the first half.
We're getting closer. Ray, I'm gonna let you take it away.
Yeah, so like I said, I went to this 50 Cent concert this past weekend. He had his 20th anniversary of Get Rich or Die Trying. But I wanted to shout out a different album from a different artist, but in that same camp, Aftermath,
Mm-hmm.
Eminem.
Hey.
So 2002, we have the Eminem Show, which it might be my favorite Eminem album. It's kind of like tied up there with a couple others, but I think it's a really strong effort. It really shows um, Eminem's song making ability. He's through his previous album, he's shown how eccentric he is,
Yeah.
how shocking he can be, especially on Marshall Mathers LP, and his rapping ability, technically. But I think this is just like the best of all that Eminem has shown in this early stage of his career. And it has a lot of, great tracks, that everyone knows. I would pull them up now, but I don't want to mess up what's going on my phone right now. But yeah, it's a huge um, list of like the best Eminem songs, in my opinion, and it it shows why people regarded him as one of the greats at that time, even though eventually he may have not put out the best of efforts. But this is, where he is, in my opinion, at the top of his game.
Peak Eminem. If you had to pick one song from the album, what's your standout track?
Man, if I had to pick one track from this album, um, I'm a fan of kind of the more low key tracks like Mockingbird
Okay.
but I believe Cleaning Out My Closet is on this one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. That's up there.
y'all, that's a really big track from him. But yeah, there's a lot of great ones out there.
For me, my number one would definitely be Superman.
That's a good one.
I think it's a great song and definitely think this album is a classic in hip hop lore, one that's going to last forever.
I agree.
So, as we celebrate the 50th anniversary of hip hop, we look back on a great album, one that has stood the test of time more than 20 years later. And as we conclude episode number 15 of the Media Maestros, thank you all for joining us. Thank you all for hopping on, for listening. Until next time, peace.
Mockingbird is on Encore. No mistake. See y'all.
No judgment, brother. No judgment. Peace.